Approve the consent calendar by unanimous acclamation that their work is done, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. As carried.
And Bishop, we had two pieces of new legislation come up on the floor of our committee.
Okay.
The first one is found in report number 2 concerning the recognition of CLMs and assigned laypersons, and the committee moves concurrence.
It is before you. Any questions or concerns? All right, if you would approve this, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Same sign. It is approved.
The second piece of new legislation concerns training on gender-related power dynamics, and our action was to refer that to the Board of Ordained Ministry.
Okay, it is properly before you. Are there any questions? All right. All right, we're referring this to the board. If you would approve that, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. It is carried.
And Bishop, you can turn the page. We go on to the back of the page, everyone. For report number 4, our election of officers for 2017, Chairperson Nico Romaine Stout, Vice Chairperson Jen Stewart, and Secretary Skylar Beal. And the committee moves concurrence.
All right. If you would elect those officers, please raise your hand. Thank you. Same sign if you oppose. They are elected.
All right. Bishop, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my secretary, Nico Romaine Stout, and my vice chair, Ron Grant, who stepped up to fill a vacancy. I would also like to thank our parliamentarian, Douglas Evans, for his service. And I would like to thank the members of the Leadership Development Focus Session for their flexibility and willingness to try new things, and even to move spaces. After the conclusion of our formal work, a few dozen people accepted our invitation to gather in groups and share reflections on the work of leadership development in our diverse ministry settings. And it is our hope that these conversations continue to bear fruit both locally and in our wider connection.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. All right. Connecting for Mission Domestic is our next forum. Here they are.
I'd like to begin by pointing out that I was actually elected last year as secretary of this committee, but we lost our chair who removed his membership from the United Methodist Church after General Conference did not move toward inclusion this year. And so we elected a whole new slate of officers, and I ended up becoming the chair of the committee. Andrew Stanton Nurse was elected vice chair, and Terry Stewart jumped in as secretary. Our first order of business is the consent calendar, which is composed of the report on page 59 and all the pieces of legislation for this committee that were in the pre-conference handbook, beginning with page 82.
Okay, it is properly before us. Is there any questions? I don't see anything. Okay, if you would approve the consent calendar on all items, would you raise your hand? Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. It is carried.
Okay. Our second order of business was one piece of legislation that was brought from the floor. It should be before the body by the pages. It's titled Support for the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, and the committee moves concurrence.
All right, it's properly before us. Is there any debate or discussion? Looks like you're ready to move. All right, if you would approve this, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. It's carried.
Okay. And final order of business was the election of officers for 2017. Jane Brazell was elected as chair. Megan Kilpatrick, if you note the typo there, the K should be an L. Megan Kilpatrick was elected as vice chair, and I'm actually going to serve as secretary the next time around.
Okay, all right. The officers are before us. Any questions? All right, if you would approve, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? All right, they are elected.
All right. Thank you, Bishop. I would like to just take this moment to very sincerely thank the other officers of this committee for stepping up at the last minute and filling in as needed. And also thank the entire focus session for bearing with us as we fumbled our way through legislation that we weren't, as we were working on the fly. It was a special moment to be able to be with people working together to make something happen, even as we were caught off guard. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next one, Connecting for Missions International. And then I guess we finish off with administrative support.
Hello, my name is Reverend Jenny Phillips. I'm an extension minister. And we begin with our consent calendar. Our committee recommends concurrence with reports number 1A through 1D.
Okay, it is properly before you. Is there any questions on these? All right, if you would approve these, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. Those are carried.
Great. And now we have two new pieces of legislation. We're going to take them in reverse order from what you see on your paper. So we'll begin with report number 3. This statement came in response to a general conference issue that Marie spoke to this morning, the decision against divestment from fossil fuels. Our annual conference, along with 10 other annual conferences and the General Board of Global Ministries, had endorsed and sent legislation to General Conference calling them to divest from fossil fuels. In doing so, we expressed our deep concern about the morality of continuing to provide moral cover and earn profits from the fossil fuel industry. And so this statement expresses our lament over this decision and calls on the Western jurisdiction to also endorse this statement. And so let me share this with you. If you don't, may I read it, Bishop?
Yes, you may.
So it is this. Be it resolved that the Pacific Northwest Conference adopt the statement of lament on General Conference 2016's affirmation of fossil fuel investments. General Conference 2016 voted to continue investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the fossil fuel industry. During debate, proponents of fossil fuel investing cited shareholder advocacy as the primary reason for maintaining these investments. The following week, ExxonMobil continued its decades-long history of rejecting climate-related shareholder resolutions, this time voting down a simple resolution asking the company to report on the impact that limiting global warming to 2 degrees Celsius will have on its business. Our United Methodist Pension Board has $19.5 million invested in ExxonMobil alone in the first quarter of 2016. And the board's investments in the top 200 fossil fuel companies lost 30% in value in 2015. Meanwhile, United Methodists worldwide are suffering the impacts of climate change. Our colleagues in ministry tell stories of drought and fire in Africa. Mothers and children torn apart and swept away by typhoon waters in the Philippines and rising sea levels in Tonga. Closer to home, extreme temperatures continue to scorch the West, exacerbating long-term drought, fueling wildfires, melting glaciers and permafrost, and stressing agriculture, ecosystems, and animals. The United Methodist Church has a long history of screening industries from its investments when those industries cause widespread harm. Yet the suffering and harm caused by climate change will exceed the harm caused by the industries we already screen, including alcohol, tobacco, gambling, pornography, weapons, and private prisons. Jesus says that if anyone does not listen to what you have to say, you should leave that house or town, and once outside it, shake its dust from your feet. Faith communities have voiced our climate concerns to the fossil fuel industry for more than 2 decades. Yet the United Methodist Church remains invested in coal, petroleum, and natural gas companies that exploit God's creation. As long as we invest in fossil fuels, we have a financial stake in their success, and we provide moral cover for their broken business model, a model that recklessly exploits fossil fuels despite the harm they cause. When we profit from these companies, their coal dust, fracking waters and tar sands cling to our feet, and we leave our dirty footprints in our places of ministry around the world. United Methodist churches, institutions, and agencies should seek alternative investments that contribute to a sustainable, low-carbon future. The Pacific Northwest Conference of the United Methodist Church laments that the General Conference 2016 failed to support fossil fuel divestment, and we are sorry for the impact that the United Methodist Church's continued affirmation of the fossil fuel economy will have on vulnerable people and places. We urge annual conferences of the United Methodist Church to work together to identify low-carbon alternatives to fossil fuel investments. And we also call on the 2016 Western Jurisdictional Conference to adopt this statement. Be it further resolved that the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference Secretary send this statement to the Western Jurisdictional Conference on behalf of the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference.
All right, it is before you properly. Is there any questions or any discussion? All right, if you would approve this, oh, yes, there is a question.
Michael Shaw, University Temple United Methodist Church lay member. As a heavy investor in the Northwest Foundation, I would wonder if the foundation is already adhering by that. No fossil fuel investment.
Anybody who could address, do you want to address that?
It is not. Tom Wilson's back there. But so
Tom.
sorry, Tom, I didn't mean to speak for you. My goodness.
Tom, come to microphone 2.
So Michael, I think your question was, is the foundation investing in fossil fuels? We are investing through WestPath, which is a subsidiary of the General Board of Pensions. They are investing in fossil fuels, and so are we.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. White card, number 2.
I have a modest amount of professional involvement with the fuel thing.
Oh, sure to identify first.
Oh, I'm Carl Slater from Longview United Methodist Church. And given this huge drop, and the future doesn't look that bright in terms of the world glut and the oncoming greater and greater efficiencies of solar and some other sources, why do we have this money in there anyway? It would seem to me that the bishops would ask our finance advisors, why are you putting the money, why are you holding on to this stock which is not doing very well?
Okay. It's kind of a sneaky way to get a negative in there, a vote against. So, Jenny, you want to address that at all?
Well, it's not really the case that the bishops have the authority to do that. So we and other annual conferences, as I shared, brought a resolution to General Conference asking the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits to stop investing in fossil fuels. And that didn't just come at General Conference. There have been many of us involved in conversation with them over a number of years. And basically what we heard from them was, we need to be told to do it. We need to hear loud and clear from the global church that you want us to do that, and they did not hear that message at General Conference. And so that's why we're bringing this statement of lament, because as an annual conference that supported fossil fuel divestment, this is a statement to say that we regret it did not pass at General Conference.
Okay. All right. Any?
4 over there and a 4 over there.
Okay. 4. All right. Come to number 2. By the window. Okay. Okay.
Chuck Heineman, Pioneer Walla Walla, retired clergy. Just a piece of information. We spoke with I'm on the foundation board. We spoke with a representative from WestPath. They're starting to hear, and I think they will hear more. I'm quite confident in Jenny's abilities. I've dialogued with her. and she doesn't seem to be changing. The thing that the representative from Westpath did say is that there's a lower exposure to big oil because Westpath has chosen small caps rather than mid or large cap investments, and they tend not to be as much petroleum based. The other thing I would just say, personally, I'll probably vote for this, but I also know if I want any impact, I've got to look at how much gas I'm burning in my own vehicle. I've got to look at whether our church has programmable thermostats and LED light bulbs and those kind of things where we also impact the environment.
Thank you. White card first, and then we'll go to a...
Darren Smith with Tumwater. The question I have is, if there's going to be an effort to actually divest in these investments, is there going to be any exit strategy that's going to be implemented rather than just saying on a hard date we're going to sell, when it could be that we're in a low, and if we waited for a little while it could probably rise up and then sell it within a reasonable amount of time. We don't want to sell when it's at a market bottom.
May I clarify? I just want to clarify, because I'm concerned there may be some confusion. Right now, we switched the order of the legislation that we're considering. So right now we're considering report number 3, which is simply a statement of lament about what has happened. And then we'll do report number 2, where we'll talk about divestment for our own annual conference. I'm still happy to answer this question if you like, but it's...
I hear you. Yeah, it's really not germane to this particular one. You can come back and re-answer. All right, we have a card number, well, we have, I did identify number 4 green card, and then we'll go to a motion. Keep in mind we're on the lament, which is not an action in terms of changing that direction. It's already been decided. So this is an action of lament. Oh, number 5, did you not want to speak now? You'll wait. Okay, blue card, number 4.
Jodine Romaine Stout, Clergy Sunrise and Federal Way. I would move that we add to the last paragraph where it says sending the statement to the Western Jurisdictional Conference. And I need a name for this to be for sure, but that we also send it to, I'm thinking it's the General Connectional Table, but I'm not sure if that's the exact name.
It is called the Connectional Table.
Then my motion is that we also send this letter to the General Connectional Table.
Is there a second? Okay, it's a form of amendment. You could speak to it if you want.
If we lament, I think we should tell the whole church, and that seems the best way to tell the whole church that we're lamenting their action.
Okay, all right. Any discussion on the amendment? Just adding the connectional table. I don't see any more discussion. All right, if you would approve that amendment, would you raise your hand? Thank you. Opposed, same sign. All right, it is carried. Any other discussion? Are you ready to vote? Okay. If you would approve this particular lament being sent to jurisdictional conference as well as connectional table, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. All right, thank you. It is carried.
Great, and so now we go back to report number 2, resolution on divestment from fossil fuels. Be it resolved that the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church shall not knowingly make investments in any company or entity whose core business activity involves the production of petroleum or natural gas. And core business activity refers to a company's primary or central focus of activity and it is an essential element in the company's economic success. A core business is one that accounts for 10% or more of a company's revenue derived from the objectionable products and/or services. And be it further resolved that the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church requests that the United Methodist Foundation of the Northwest add a similar investment screen to its holdings and investments. So the United Methodist Church has a long history of screening objectionable industries from its investments. If a company betrays the church's values and threatens the health and integrity of the people of the world and the planet, then we sometimes make a choice to stop investing in those industries. While the general church made a decision to continue investing in fossil fuels, we can still make a moral claim as a conference by divesting. The New York Annual Conference voted to divest earlier this month, and I expect many more annual conferences will consider similar petitions next year. To give you some context, the United Methodist Church, as was mentioned, has an investment agency. It's referred to both as the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits and as WestPath. While they have resisted fossil fuel investment, divestment, they tend to follow the money. And if their annual conference clients can only remain invested with them if they are fossil-free, I believe they may begin to offer fossil-free options. Now, this resolution or this petition doesn't affect the pension fund, but the WestPath offers investment opportunities for endowments and other types of investments that churches and annual conferences and the foundation can use. I can tell you that I have been working on religious fossil fuel divestment for the past 3 years, and I've been engaged not only with the Methodist Church, but also a number of Protestant denominations, Jewish communities, and the Catholic Church. Through this work, I'm in conversation with religious and philanthropic and political leaders who are very concerned about the climate crisis. So here's what's going on right now. World leaders last December made an agreement together to cap global warming at between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius. But all those world leaders, we celebrated that, but those world leaders are all back home now, and that treaty has to be ratified by at least 55 countries. And if it's not, the consequences will be deadly for our generation, and even more so for our children and our grandchildren. Behind the scenes, there is real concern that the treaty will not be ratified, that there will not be enough support to put it through. And in these conversations, what I'm hearing more and more is that the moral institutions of the world must step up if the political institutions are to follow. And when people are talking about the moral institutions, they're looking at us. They're looking at us. And while this is a small step, it's a step that we can take to begin to move toward making the difference, towards saying we refuse to commit our children and our grandchildren and this planet to global warming that dooms it, that we are committed to leading toward a low-carbon economy. Thank you.
All right, it is properly before us. Yes, we have a motion here.
Colin Cushman, licensed local pastor, about to be at Siebold. I move to amend the first paragraph, adding coal to the list of items we are divesting from. Thus, it would read from the beginning of the line, involves the production of petroleum, natural gas, or coal.
Is there a second? All right. Would you like to speak to it?
Coal is one of the major fossil fuels, and so we should probably include it.
Any discussion on the amendment? I don't see any hands. All right, if you would approve that amended motion, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. It's carried. Yes, 4, number 2.
I'm Paul Jeffrey. I'm appointed to the General Board of Global Ministries, and I've been nominated to be an Episcopal spouse. I want to thank Jenny. I'm in favor of this, and I want to thank Jenny and the committee for offering us an opportunity to put our money where our mouth is. It's very easy to issue laments and issue statements about what other people should do, but what we're talking here is about what we can do. And I join with Chuck in saying that we need to engage in lifestyle changes that reflect a greater stewardship for the environment. But we also need to look at where our money is and what it's doing. We have a tendency in the church at points like this to call upon the people who manage money for us, and they will talk about fiduciary responsibility. And that's fine, they should. But we need to not abdicate in that process, our own responsibility to talk about moral responsibility. And this is a concrete example where we need to exercise our moral responsibility. And if you want to talk about fiduciary responsibility, the question about why the hell we're invested in this thing that's losing so much money, it's a good question. The second point I want to make is that we're really good as a denomination when there's a disaster somewhere in the world in responding to that, both with our time and with our money. We give lots of money to UMCOR, for example, to respond to typhoons and hurricanes and refugees. But in the world we live in, those disasters are increasingly becoming a product of climate change. Last fall, I stood on the island of Lesbos in Greece, documenting the arrival of hundreds of thousands of refugees, many of them from Syria. I had Syrian children handed to me as I was photographing people getting out of boats in the surf, those wet children handed to me to take to the shore. One of the reasons people are fleeing the conflict in Syria has to do with a drought that began to push people out of some rural areas into cities, which led to some political issues, which led to the crackdown of Assad against dissidents, which led to development of armed opposition movements and so forth. We're real good at picking up the pieces afterwards. In the Philippines, the United Methodist Church has been very helpful in responding to the needs of landless farmers who've been demanding help in the midst of a drought from a government that has promised that help but hasn't provided it. Again, we're real good at providing help after the fact. By addressing issues of climate change, we're beginning to get at the roots and the causes of those things we call disasters. And I think this effort to put our money where our mouth is about moral responsibility is an excellent opportunity to address not just the aftermath of conflict and disasters, but the causes of those things. Thanks.
Okay. Another 4 here.
All right, so normally I know there's not a lot of youth representation, so we're getting our money's worth this year. You know, we're gonna speak out. Oh, I'm Katie Ritchie. I'm from Garden Street in Bellingham, and I'm a youth delegate this year, so yeah. Just yesterday, we commemorated the Imagine No Malaria campaign and celebrated that deaths due to malaria were reduced by half in 2015. I'm proud to say this because I've been raising money for Imagine No Malaria since I was 6 or 7. I don't remember the first time I heard about Imagine No Malaria, but I do remember lying on the website and saying I was 13 just so I could join the cause. I remember that it was called Nothing But Nets at first, and we decided that that was not adequate support. I remember being totally taken with the cause and begging my dad to make a lemonade stand with me so that I could fundraise. I remember last year 2 years ago at annual conference, wearing that mosquito costume and running around the finish line at the 5K. I remember making my great aunt promise to take me to Africa when I turn 18, which is a promise I have not yet let her forget. Funnily enough, I was born on Malaria Day, so it's almost like I was born to work with Imagine No Malaria. I am so stoked that we have cut the death in half, but saddened to tell you that climate change is causing temperatures to rise, and the Center for Disease Control reports that malaria is being transmitted in places it has never been present before. As the United Methodist Church, we cannot celebrate the milestones of Maginot Malaria while also profiting from the companies that are creating the conditions for the spread of the disease. We can't continue to say we're against climate change and the devastating effects to our world while we're saying we're for fossil fuel profits. I want to end with words from our own social creed. Today is the day God cares for the integrity of creation, wills the healing and wholeness of all life, weeps at the plunder of earth's goodness. Today is the day. Join me in supporting this petition and saying that today is the day we will respond to God's weeping by choosing not to profit from the plunder of earth's goodness.
Okay. I'm going to remind you, not good to applaud in plenary. Anybody against, in fairness, any red cards? Did anybody like to speak against? We had 2 speeches for. Any point of order or information? White card?
Peter Perry, First Olympia. For the record, I fully support this, but I have a question. I would like to hear from somebody with our Board of Pensions as to what impact this would have written the way it is today.
Okay. Board of Pensions, or do you also want foundation? Or foundation, all right. Tom is here.
And Bruce is
Oh, Bruce is there too. Okay, both of you can address this, from your different entities.
Take time.
Yeah, let's speed it up a little bit, you guys. We got an order of the day right now. Okay, Tom, why don't you go first? You're there first.
So the impact that it'll have on the foundation is it will force us out of the Board of Pensions, using the Board of Pensions as our manager. And unless they create a portfolio or a fund for us that is fossil free. And I don't know how you shake your head, Jenny.
May I respond?
Sure.
This is the text of the resolution says, let me find the place. It requests that the foundation add a similar screen. It does not require the foundation to do so. It's an ask, not a tell.
But the foundation is part of the body. And so it's pretty hard for us to have the body request and not want to represent the body.
But you're saying it forces you out, and it does not. It was intentionally crafted not to put you in that position, but to simply ask you to consider it.
So the way this affects the foundation is if we respectfully decide to ignore this, it affects us from the perspective of others who we may be working with now, or we may be working with in the future, who would require that we have a portfolio, that we have an option that does not invest in fossil fuels. And so unless the Board of Pensions opens or creates such a portfolio, we would have to go elsewhere to find that option. Okay? It is also the least expensive way that we find right now to invest and have active investment management going on. And what that does is helps our budget to do the other things the foundation does within the annual conferences without fee. It also puts us in a place where we would move away from an entity that we still believe is doing some of the best work in shareholder advocacy, in investing for good, in socially responsible investing, whatever we want to call that.
Okay, that's helpful. All right. Bruce, did you want to add anything? Good, good, good.
I got to tell you that I'm Bruce Galvin, the Conference Benefits Officer. I've been on this job for 40 years. I've looked at what the General Board of Pensions has done. I've worked with them for at least 30 years. They have changed pretty radical in their approach. I look at it from a practical standpoint. We have to fund our pensions. We got to figure out how to do that. And I know that what Jenny's petition has nothing to do with that, but we as a Conference Board of Pensions, we have about $15 million that is invested with the General Board that allows us to put up reserves so we can have the ability when we have a bad financial market to cover the deficits that might occur. And we're going to have these. I'm afraid that the actuaries at the General Board of Pensions have estimated a much greater return than what we're probably going to see. We have to rely on the professionals that know what they're doing. We have to look long-term, and Jenny, I'm sorry to tell you that yes, the fossil fuels company have had a rough ride, but the General Board and we don't look at it from a short term. We have to cover what we owe, which is, for all the clergy that are sitting here, you're all in our plans, every one of you, and we have to figure out a way to pay that. I'm frustrated because I know I don't have a chance. We speak from our emotion and not our head. And for me, it's going to be an incredibly frustrating time because I don't want to go outside the General Board. We would have to go through, I don't even know how to go about it I'm very knowledgeable about this. I'm a registered investment advisor. I understand the process. But we would have to figure out how to comply with all of the other socially responsible things. And I don't know how to do that. I really don't. And so I'm at a real quandary. I follow a lifestyle myself that I follow we have solar panels at our house. I work at home. I live a lifestyle such, but I really feel frustrated where we might be going to force us to do something that we might regret at some point.
Okay, those were two outside opinions against, so that balances this total. Does anybody else want to weigh in? Point of order or question? Send a mic over there. Number 4.
I didn't mean to take the slowest route to the microphone. I'm sorry. Bruce Smith, clergy, Yakima, Wesley. I'm confused. And Jenny and Tom, I need your help. I see church shall not knowingly make investments. And maybe I missed something or I'm in the wrong place, but I'm just looking for clarity. When I see the word shall in a piece of legislation, to me that sounds like a mandate, and what was going on between you and Tom, I'm just confused and I need more clarity.
Okay, go ahead.
This speaks to the annual conferences funds, the funds that are stewarded by the annual conference, not the Northwest Foundation. And then the second piece is a request to the Northwest Foundation, but not a shall. Make sense?
Is that clear? All right. Another point of order?
Marie Cook-Stanowski, lay from Green Lake United Methodist. I have a question. Tom was talking about leaving the foundation, and I'm wondering if we pass this with a request to our Tom was talking about leaving WestPath. And my question is, if we pass this with a request to the foundation, does that add weight to their work with WestPath?
I believe that it does. I don't know if is this a question to me?
I think it's to both of you. I'm wondering what impact this will have. And I hear Tom saying I can't stay invested in WestPath, but I'm wondering if there's a different way of looking at it.
Do you want to go first, Tom?
Both of you can respond.
So I hope I understood I don't know that I understood the question correctly. I think it had something to do with, will it give us weight with Westpath? Will it allow us to convince Westpath to offer another option? I think it's already been proven that Westpath is listening to us, even though more slowly than we may wish. And so if, I don't know if this is correct to say, but if the proposal said, we've got a year and a half and we're out, then I think it allows those discussions to happen, while at the same time saying, look, we've been given a deadline. If we can't meet this deadline, then we have no other choice but to move out of this. I think West Bath is making some positive movements, and I realize they're not as fast as we would like them to be, but some of the things that Bruce said and others, I think is on their minds and a concern for them.
I completely agree with you. It is on their minds because they have been hearing from all of us how concerned we are about this issue. And I do believe change is on the horizon and that they need an extra push. And that if their investing clients say to them, we're gonna have to leave, and not just us, but also the New York Annual Conference, and without naming names, I can tell you that there will be legislation in many other annual conferences next year doing this very same thing. We're just hopefully going to lead the way. But if their clients start to say, we need to be able to invest without investing in fossil fuels, we're their clients and they depend on our fees. And so I believe they will respond. Now, I heard Tom mention that a deadline would be helpful, that a time horizon for this would be helpful. So I just want to lift that up as well.
All right. Okay, another question or point of order.
Larry Fox, layperson from Langley United Methodist. Can you clarify for information what other major Protestant denominations have done in terms of divestment?
So the United Church of Christ has created a fossil-free fund, and they're in the midst of a longer-term project of identifying fossil fuel companies with best practices, which is unclear quite what that means. And then they will reevaluate whether or not it makes sense to remain invested in any fossil fuel companies after a period of time. The Unitarians have divested, and then a number of denominations have divested from tar sands and coal. And I can look them up and get back to you so I don't misstate any if that would be helpful, but that's a sense.
Okay, we have a couple of cards. We're past the order of the day, by the way, and so...
I'm sorry, I have to throw one more in. The Episcopalians divested, not their pension fund, but all their other funds. Sorry.
Okay, we do have a white card. We may have to postpone this vote if we can't wrap it up, because we're rapidly moving past the order of the day time.
I'm sorry, I will just take a quick second. I'm Megan Kilpatrick, lay member from Puyallup United Methodist Church. I actually had a question for the two gentlemen who spoke from the Foundation and the Board of Pensions. You had mentioned shareholder advocacy, as we have been a member of those boards for quite a while, and I was wondering if you could point out any specific examples of that shareholder advocacy where the United Methodist Church has actually affected a vote or kind of worked to influence our values at that level, where that's been effective.
It's fair. One of you like to address that? Come to the mic, Bruce. I can't hear you.
Bruce Galvin, this wasn't something I was prepared to talk about, but I know the General Board of Pensions on their website, gbophb.org, has listed the accomplishments that they've made of advocacies. And what they would tell you is in the game is way more important than not being in the game. It takes a while, yes, but they have been successful at it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion card. Have to go to that first, and then we'll see if you want it.
Bishop, this is a really important issue. I'm going to have the best time to be able to do it, so I would move the orders of the day.
Okay. It is before you. If you want to then close this at this time, we'd have to come back to it and go to the orders of the day. Is there a second on that, by the way? Okay, it's been seconded. Non-debatable, by the way. So let's decide whether you want to now postpone while you're just not voting right now and moving to the orders of the day. Okay, that's what you're voting on. If you would support that, please raise your hand. Okay, if you do not support that, raise your hand. Pretty close, but I think the non-support has won. So we'll still continue the debate and be in it. Motion card, and then we'll go to the fours.
Nico Romaine Stout, clergy, appointed to Anchorage, Alaska. I currently serve in a region that is very heavily involved in petroleum industry, but nonetheless I am for this. However, hearing Tom and Jenny, I'm going to try to amend on the fly here. In the first paragraph, be it resolved that by January 1st, 2018, the Pacific Northwest Annual Conference, et cetera, et cetera. This adds approximately a year and a half.
So you want a date, all right? Is there a second? All right, it's been seconded. All right, that's before us. You want to speak to it?
This simply gives us a timeline and a little bit of time for our excellent financial managers to work with Westpath and see if some options can be developed.
All right. Any discussion on the amendment? Doesn't look like you have anything. All right, if you would approve that amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed, same sign. All right, it's clearly approved. So now we're working on the main motion, and we've had a couple cards. One back here. So go first, number 2. And then we'll go over here.
So I want to thank Jenny for all her really hard work on this. This is a tremendous amount of effort and research to really put this together. And thank you, Nico. I think giving us a little bit of breathing room as we kind of really look at what does accountability look like moving forward. And of course, thank you to the beleaguered Bruce and Tom, who I know they're caught sort of in that space. But I have to speak very strongly for this amendment. Creation care is not a matter, there is no point in making investments that you can't enjoy later. Climate care is real, it's now, people are dying. We're losing a football field of land an hour in Louisiana. Every year is warmer than the year before. Our El Nino this way is up here, and the one last time is down here. So we are seeing a rapid escalation of temperature. And I'll tell you, the thing that we have to really watch out for right now is infrastructure. The oil companies are continuing to build pipelines and run trains and invest in or try to refineries, building transit stations, shipping oil. They've got oil coming out of the tar sands and overflowing, and they want to sell it and make money, but 80% of that stuff has to stay in the ground or we're not going to make it through the climate crisis. And that's just the truth. And yes, we can all lament. Let's do that. It's awful, and it's just no fun, and all of us are going to have to work on this. And meanwhile, people are dying. We're going to have to face the truth, face our grief, face our denial, and act on climate. Thank you.
All right. There was a white card back there. Has that been retracted? Okay. All right. Wasn't retracted. Okay, we'll go with the white first.
Darren Hewson, clergy, Falls City. My question was about the amendment. It sounded like in the amendment that we were putting the deadline specifically on the annual conference portion versus on the foundation portion. And I just want to be clear that the language, whether it applies to both. I think you can read it as applying to both. I just think it needs to be clear whether we're applying it to both. So that's my question.
Okay, I interpreted it as just the first be it resolved. That's where
how I heard it too, and that's why I feel like though that several other people, and I just asked Nico, the intention was to apply it to both. So.
Oh, was to apply to both?
Yeah.
All right. I think that it's, I'll make a ruling on this to make it simple, is that I heard it just on the first one and not on the second. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, so if you want to amend it to the second one, you may do that.
I got to write an amendment then.
Okay, all right, you can come back. All right, card over here, number 5.
Ann Ekus, Bothell United Methodist Church. I'd just like to speak to the effect of our shareholder actions. Decades ago, the oil companies looked at their research and said, my goodness, climate is changing. And their response to that discovery, their own discovery, was to hire the lobbyists and use the tactics of the tobacco industry to confuse the public, to cast doubt on the research of and the consensus of climate scientists. We've been at the table. They haven't paid any attention to us.
Okay. Now, I do want to be, in fairness, is there anybody against? Because we've heard a number of speeches for. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this? Okay, there we are. Number 2.
Chuck Heineman, Walla Walla Pioneer, retired clergy. Serving on the foundation board has taught me some things. Until recently, we were investing through Smith Barney. Smith Barney didn't listen to us. When we went with Westpath, which is a relatively new development on the Board of Pension, we didn't always get our way, but we were being listened to. And the person that spoke to us from the general board is from Portland, comes here frequently. We very much had a voice. What we don't have yet through Westpath is a social responsibility fund that has no fossil fuels. I'm pretty sure that we will see a day when there is such a fund. It's not there yet. And at that point, it would be very simple for us to say, let's move investments to that portfolio, but still have investments in other equities. Right now, it's really a choice. I mean, we could move them all to CDs, but they're not earning anything. So, to me, I'm going to vote no on this. If it doesn't really matter that in terms of the discussion on the foundation board, we have discussed and we will discuss what's our best shot at this. And I've made sure that this comes up whenever we talk about investments. I just think we just are limited in the choices that we have. And I ask for some patience on the part of the conference. We're doing the best we can.
Okay, it's fair. Motion at the back.
Sorry,
Darren Hewson, still clergy at Falls City. I would like to make a motion to amend to do 2 things, actually. One is to change the word request to require, in the portion regarding the foundation, and to add at the end of that sentence by January 1st, 2018, so that it matches the amendment that we already made to the beginning part.
Is there a second? All right. You want to speak to it?
I just think that I actually feel like Tom was asking for that, and someone went up to him and he affirmed that that was something that he wants to feel that pressure, because it gives him more leeway to tell Westpath, I'm going to have to pull out if you don't change. And so in order to maybe move Westpath forward more quickly, to have this sort of ultimatum there, it seems like strong language that Tom even was asking for. So.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I think Tom said yes to the date. I'm not sure he wanted the required. Is that correct?
I think he felt like request was the same as require in this case anyway, so I figured we might as well say require.
Well, is that the intent, Tom? I think there's a presumption there that I did not hear you say. You'd like to address that? And this is a very important point, because request is more lenient than required. It's the shall and the may. Go ahead, Tom.
This is difficult because I'm speaking for myself and not for the board. I don't know what the board's answer to that would be. If our sense is that we truly can get Westpath to move on this, if we have to say require, then Tom Wilson would have you say require. I don't know how my board will take that, and I don't know if they would feel somewhat less, if they wouldn't be more sensitive to greater conversations if it said require. So I'm sorry, it's hard for me to
all right.
give you the best.
Well, the amendment stands. So we had a second. Now we're on the amendment. So you need to debate whether you wish to approve the amendment, which is to change request to required and put the date, same date as the original Ramon Stout amendment earlier. Yes, point of order here.
This is a question.
Okay.
Larry Fox, Langley United Methodist Church, layperson. And it's a question of Tom. My assumption is with the January 1st, 2018 date, that we have another annual conference in the interim. And if you pursued this and were not successful, you could come back to this body and say, hey, this is the situation we're in, and request that we change our stance.
Tom?
I could.
It was directed towards you. Yeah. No annual conference can bind the next annual conference. So the annual conference certainly can change its mind. We did have some against. This is against the amendment to change now. We're on the amendment. Number 4.
I am Barbara Dad Schaefer, a lay member of this body. I too sit on the board of directors for the foundation and have for about a dozen years. That means I rub shoulders with people who have opinions about financial world that may or may not be similar to my own. I personally am very committed to socially responsible investing and to divestment from anything to do with fossil fuels, and practice that in our personal portfolio, as modest as it may be. I speak against the amendment only in that I know from working with these persons who share with me the responsibility for that, on that board, that the conversation has already begun. It will continue with or without even passing the main motion, and that requiring it will not help that conversation. Requesting, yes.
Okay. That's a board member response. We also have against over here. And any other cards? I don't see any. Okay. We're on the amendment now.
Tom Bloom, lady from Auburn, First United Methodist Church. I think in part working with incomplete information and just looking at the website for West Path, there is a process there. And it's a process that we should be able to support. It's based on our principles and justice that are listed in the discipline. In fact, the list is part of this motion is drawn from our principles, our justice. And it seems to me that even though we have our lament out there that the General Conference didn't move, that we should wait for that 4 years to go by, see if we can't get the General Conference to move or make a change to our social justice principles, because West Path has a process where they look at the new updated discipline and update their filter on investments.
Okay,
So
it's a statement against, statement for, all right.
Nathan Hollyfield, clergy, Tacoma District for Christ United Methodist Church. I stand in favor of this amendment. I do so after hearing Barbara, you stand against it, and very much appreciate your opinion on this, but there was a statement that you made that caught my attention, and that was that you already practice this in your modest personal portfolio. As a clergy, this is my personal portfolio, and currently I do not have a choice of whether or not I follow the same choices that you have in your modest personal portfolio. So I believe what we are doing in this motion is we are asking the body, of which consists of us clergy who do not have this choice on our own, and you lay members who do have choices in your own personal portfolios, to give us an opportunity to have a moral voice in the way that our funds are being invested. And this particular amendment that is before us gives us an opportunity to go back to West Path and say, we are speaking quite clearly about where we stand as a body, and we are giving you ample amount of time to create a sustainable investment for our annual conference, and likely, as we've heard, for the New York annual conference and other annual conferences as well. And so I'd ask for all of you who are lay members who have the choice in your own personal portfolios to give us clergy the opportunity to have a choice in ours. Thank you.
Okay, we are on the amendment. There's a blue card in motion. We're rapidly getting to the point where we can't stop. We have to stop. We're coming on dinner time, and the Ward's banquet is scheduled. So I'm going to have to call a halt in about 5 minutes.
Nika Sai, youth delegate from the Seattle district. I just wanted to call the question on all that is before us.
Okay. Is there a second? All right, it is seconded. All right, it is before you. There's no debate. Let us go to the motion needs 2/3. So if you would stop debate and vote on the amendment first. We have the amendment, and then we'll vote on the main motion. Everybody clear? All right? Because it's all before us. So 2/3 of you need to vote this. Would you raise your hand if you would wish to end debate? Oh, very clear. Any opposed? Same sign. Very clear you want to do that. All right, we're on the amendment. Surely make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. Do you have the amendment? I can do it.
I don't have the amendment, but the amendment that we are on is that on paragraph 2, we will also add the date of by January 1st, 2018, and we would also change in paragraph 2 that word request to require.
That's right. Okay, so that's what we're voting on now. If you would vote that amendment, please raise your hand. If you're opposed to that amendment, please raise your hand. Gee, pretty close. I think the ayes have it, but let's do it again. Stand if you are in favor of the amendment. You guys are going to have to help me. Okay, all right. Thank you. If you're opposed to the amendment, please stand. I'm sorry, you guys. I think you guys are about, it's so close. We're going to probably have to have a count.
So if we could have both lay teller teams, please.
It's not a written ballot, it's a count. So again, we'll ask you to rise, and our tellers will actually count the votes. Okay, lay tellers. Oh, we're not voting yet. Let's get our tellers positioned.
Tellers, if you would each stand at the head of the aisles.
We're on the amendment now, just the amendment. All right, you guys ready? All right, if you would vote for the amendment, which is to change those dates, the date and the term required, please stand. He's counted. This front row counted here. Is this front row counted? No, not yet. They were counted. Okay. Thank you. All right. So we'll get them to tally, and then we'll vote for the against. You have to give the tally number. Okay, Rosalie, we have the number. Oh. Yeah, but does she have the number? Or is she still waiting? Oh, she's calculating. Okay. All right. I think we can now count another against. If you're against this amendment, please stand. And again, the tellers will tell you when to sit down. That's really close.
Time now.
Yeah. Okay, as soon as we get this vote, you'll know what you're going to vote on in the main motion. Yes. No, we're at the amendment, right? No, they voted to clearly 2/3. No, we got that. Now it's the motion. Okay, so here's the results. For 169, against 145, so the amendment does prevail. It is now the main motion. There's no debate because the question's been called for. You are now voting on the amended main motion, which is required, and the date is in there. All right, everybody understand? All right, if you would approve the motion, would you please raise your hand? Okay, if you oppose the motion, raise your hand. That clearly prevails. All right, so thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else as we wrap up quickly? Is there not any other substantial?
Just officers, if you want.
Okay, go ahead with your officers.
Okay, I present number 4, report number 4, election of officers for 2017. Chairperson, I'd like to make a correction to the name. It is not Nikki, it is Nika Sai, a young person. Vice Chairperson, Jocelyn Metheny, also a young person. And Secretary Cindy Roberts.
Okay, and then officers are before you. If you would elect them, please say yes. Thank you. Opposed, no. All right. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks to my committee. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. You can thank your committee.
Thanks to Kristen and Gordon Ellison Olson and Kendra Ben Smith for serving with me. It was a joy.
All right, we're going to hold our last appointment round till tomorrow, and we're going to have some announcements, and I have a prayer that we have to give. Go ahead, Shirley.
Hopefully the lost can be found yet again. We are missing a brown wallet with Ty Song's name in it. We're also missing a Verizon LG smartphone purple case with ink on top of left corner. It belongs to Arliss Ryland. If you find either of these things, if you would take them to the welcome desk, please.
Nancy, yeah. Go ahead, John.
I have 2 announcements. One is about the district gatherings this evening. This will be posted on the board over by the registration table, but let me read the locations for you. For the Inland District, you'll be meeting in the North Foyer. For the Seven Rivers District, in the Pioneer Room. Vancouver District, in the Founders Room. Puget Sound District, in the dining area. Seattle District, in the dining area. You play nice together. Tacoma District, in the dining area.
Combined districts, all right.
Then one other thing, please take all your belongings with you when you leave for dinner.
All right, and if you could hold tight just for 1 minute, we have a couple of announcements on some prayer concerns. We want to acknowledge Betty Chamberlain, lost her husband, Bob Chamberlain, our retired clergy, yesterday. So those that you know, Bob and Betty, please keep Betty in your prayers. And then also our Ben Moore, his father passed away this week. He was 101, so we celebrate that life. But let's take a moment to pray. Almighty God, as the mysteries of life and death are truly beyond our scope, we know that you are there, that you will provide all the comforts of arriving home to Bob and to Ben's father and to all the others that we know in this gathering who have crossed through this very short veil called life into life eternal. Be with these families, care for them, and comfort them, and enable us to be the hands and feet of Jesus as we minister to them also. Through Christ, Lord, we pray. Amen. Thank you. We're off to our awards celebration, which is right over there, and we will start in 5 minutes.